Welcome to the DreamHack Download, everything gaming under one show. I'm your host, Renessa, and I am joined this week by a very patient guest because I messed his name up 3 times in this pre-recording intro already. Fwiz, otherwise known as Ryan. He is here from YouTube. According to his bio, the head of gaming and commerce at YouTube. Ryan, what's the most challenging thing you've ever tried to cook?
Oh my gosh. You know what's actually funny about that? It's actually sushi, because although it is like incredibly simplistic, it's so delicate and tedious and like meticulous that it's actually I don't know if difficult, but it's definitely what's tried my patience the most.
Okay.
And I think it's because it seems inherently easy, but it actually isn't. That was a long-winded answer to your question, but I feel confident about that answer.
That's fair. I like it. I didn't even, think of sushi because you don't cook it. So
yeah, and so like when you're like doing a roll, or if you want to do like a baked salmon roll or something, like it's actually like not as easy as you think. Yeah, so I think that's I'm gonna go with that as my final answer.
All right, I'll allow it. Now we could get to the actual point of the interview,
Great.
Which is you outside of the cooking.
Sure.
So you're here, you're at YouTube, you're at this very impressive title there and everything. And if someone were to happen to take a scroll through your LinkedIn, potentially, to see where you originated from, you've had quite a few other accolades and recognizable positions. So I'd love to hear just your intro elevator pitch on who you are and how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved video games since I was growing up. I liked playing Counter-Strike competitively when I was much younger in high school. As I went to college, I was like, how do I work in the gaming industry? And was fortunate enough to get an opportunity at Major League Gaming, where I started as a volunteer referee, then started running their online tournaments, commentated esports, Call of Duty when it first started, commentated for about 7 years. All while working on the business side as well. So I kind of was, streaming was one of the first partnered channels on Twitch, was uploading content on YouTube, and then working full-time at MLG, went to Machinima, where I learned a lot about the YouTube side of the games industry. I knew a lot about esports and streaming before that. Ultimately, that landed me almost 7 years ago at YouTube, where I started the gaming business at YouTube. So I'm the head of gaming at YouTube, hired our team, built our team out, built that vertical out, and most recently took on commerce, which, it's a new initiative for YouTube, and I'm hopeful, that we'll be successful there. And I'm excited that I'm taking that on as well.
All right, cool. So clearly been a gamer your whole life. We, at DreamHack kind of understand that. If you take any game from your childhood, port it to now, like fancy, shiny, beautiful graphics, all of those things, what would it be? What do you want to see updated?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two most influential games on my life were World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike. I still play Counter-Strike to this day. I recently have been playing more Valorant, though. So I know that's a little bit of a contentious topic to talk about transitioning from Counter-Strike to Valorant. That's not lost on me, but I'm a dad now and I'm really busy, so my time has been limited. And I've played so much Counter-Strike over the years. It's been a breath of fresh air to just kind of switch it up a little bit. But I honestly, that game, I hope that Counter-Strike lives on forever and keeps getting that same kind of treatment that you just suggested, because it's such a great game, and I know I will love playing that truly till the day I die.
Well, considering the numbers, recently, I believe Esports Charts released a most watched esports, and Counter-Strike was sitting at number 2 for 2020. So it's certainly staying up there in terms of popularity. So I think you're safe.
Yeah, it's got some good staying power, I would say, over all the years. I think it's shown its strength. So yeah, we got to give it some credit.
Okay, so I'm gonna take us back to something you said in your journey of getting to where you are in the MLG area. Gaming content was very different to what it is now, as far as all of the way that Twitch worked. If we go back 10 years, what did it look like to try and live stream or even post or upload gaming content?
Yeah, it was pain. It's a great question. Yeah, so there's a couple things that happened, roughly 10 years ago. I think the biggest breakthroughs that happened, Justin TV and Ustream were big streaming platforms at the time. Ustream didn't do a great job capitalizing on gaming, and this was a great opportunity for Justin TV. And it was really tedious and difficult to stream just from having a PC, having the internet connection, and it was really cumbersome. It's actually gotten a lot easier, as you can imagine. Um, and the other thing that happened was the Dazzle capture card. So you started to see gameplay footage get uploaded to YouTube around the same time Justin TV was really starting to take off with game streaming. And so I think this ability to like democratize, content creation and capturing it really made a huge movement. At the time, YouTube actually, really wasn't embracing gaming, in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had a lot of these different categories when you came into the YouTube front page, tech and auto and sports and these different categories. And despite gaming size on YouTube, there was never really a category. And so people would actually like game the system where they would be playing Halo and a Warthog and put that in the auto category just so people could see it. And I thought it was great that like Justin TV did such a wonderful job recognizing the opportunity of like, hey, if we can monetize this and make this into something, like we have an opportunity here. And I actually, Ustream should have been the one that came out on top with streaming and gaming, and they ignored it as well. And so that's when I started. I was streaming on Justin TV and it was so awesome. And as they figured out monetization long term, but it was a pain, like truly was a pain, like everything took longer when you edited videos, rendered videos, live streaming on like really terrible bit rates and so forth. We've come a long way in 10 years in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think I streamed for the first time about 8 years ago, and I think I was autoed to 460 or whatever. So that was definitely an experience.
Yeah, and like playing on that and those bit rates, and it's just like not fun. We've come a long way.
Yeah, and I can't imagine people watching that, but I guess they didn't have anything better.
There wasn't a lot of other options. The only way to embrace gaming back then. You're right.
So I really want to know from your viewpoint what you think the revolutionary or changing point was in the industry of gaming content creation. And was it Justin TV, or I mean, heck, it could have been Drake playing with Ninja. It could have been a pandemic hitting and everybody's numbers exploding.
I think there's been different inflection points along the way. I think the biggest one is, again, the capture cards, right, that came out, about 10 years ago. And so people were really easily plugging in their Xbox or PlayStation, right? I think PC was always easier, right? Was it Fraps or whatever it was, where screen recording was a little bit easier to get content up. I think that was the big first step. I think the more pivotal one was YouTube embracing it and Twitch being spun out from Justin TV, where it was, hey, we're going to actually allow content creators to start making money in a meaningful way from doing it. And so you saw this opportunity where people actually could start to make a livelihood on it. Now, it wasn't significant, but it was enough where people were starting to make the jump over and start to get committed to do it. I think that was the big one. There's been different points at different times. I actually would say the biggest contributor to the games industry, which I think is hard for esports followers to necessarily process, but it's Minecraft. I don't think anything has done more for the games industry than Minecraft. I mean, Minecraft is far and away the most watched game on any platform, and it has been for the past 8 or 9 years or whatever it's been. So I actually think that's probably the biggest contributor to the overall games industry growing, particularly content creation. But yeah, I think you've seen different points. I think last year, you look at Twitch, Facebook gaming, YouTube gaming's growth rates, they're astronomical. And I think a lot of like COVID did probably accelerate this industry by a couple years as well. So there's been a handful of them. And it's great to see, because you're seeing so many more jobs and abilities for people to do so many different things in our games industry. There's not just one way to get involved in this industry. So it's been great to see, but I think there's been a couple pretty pivotal moments that we've seen happen to get it to this place. And I think we have still a long way to go, which is encouraging.
I think that it's fun to watch everything explode too. I mean, it's we're talking to you, you're from YouTube, but every sentence it's got Facebook and Twitch and everything in there. And so I'll be transparent. Before the interview started, I was like, listen, we talk about these other streaming sites, then come into this. And he's like, like whatever, let's go. And so let's go. Let's talk about these other sites. Is it rising tide raises all boats, or is it learn from other people's failures? Where when you're watching these other sites, you know, what lens do you kind of learn from and work with them through?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? I think it's both. I think it's really healthy for people that are working in the games industry, creators in the games industry, for Amazon, Facebook, and Google to be competing in this space. I think you want it to be that way. I think you are learning from each other. I think I see things that we should have done differently, and I see Facebook doing a great job deploying partner program and working on community. I think Twitch does a great job cultivating a community. I think they're struggling as they get bigger with some of the things that YouTube had to go through 8 or 9 years ago around music and content ID and how you go into different verticals and how you monetize your business better. And so yeah, I think it's good that we're all learning and doing things. I mean, look, we launched a product like Clips. So clearly that was something that Twitch started, and we had to figure out, like, there's a lot of demand. A product gets created, publishers and game creators have expectations that you create something similar on the platform. And so I think there's a mix of, drawing inspiration from the other platforms, learning from the other platforms. I think this industry is really big and going to continue to grow. I think there's room for everybody to do that. I also think these platforms all have different value props to the creators as well, that, everyone serves uniquely. I think of YouTube gaming as something where you have multifaceted products. You have VOD, you have the ability to do shorts, like short form content creation. You have the ability to do stories, right? You have the ability to live stream, right? Like, we have a lot more tools in the tool belt, but then you look at Twitch, they're really deep in live. That's their focus. So it allows them, from a product development standpoint, if you only care about live streaming, they can go deep. And so I think each one of these platforms, although they share a lot of similarities, each have kind of their own value prop to a creator, and creators have to figure out how to leverage all of them, leverage one more than another. But a lot of video platforms now, so this isn't going away. And I think it's like, how do you appropriately harness all of these different social media platforms to work in your favor?
Yeah.
But I think it's all a good thing. Yeah.
And YouTube has had, I've been playing around a lot more with the features lately. I didn't even realize you guys do have stories now. You have community tabs, you have shorts. It's wild to see how quickly you innovate and add. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You've been there about 6 years now. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So when you joined YouTube and you're like, okay, I'm going to take over everything gaming, what did success look like for you? What would you have defined success as when you took that role?
Yeah, it's the one thing that was nice for when I joined, Susan Wojcicki became our CEO. Google started in Susan's garage, right? So she came in and she's like, gaming's big, we need to care about it. There was no gaming team. Gaming content was on YouTube, but there was no focus or emphasis around it. So the one thing that I had going for me is it was a blank canvas, right? So you kind of can come in and, it's like a house that's really dirty. And, if you just clean the kitchen, that's a great start, right? And so I had the luxury of cleaning the house up the first 2 years, and that was big wins, right? Establishing partnerships with creators, establishing partnerships with game publishers, starting to think about what products we build to service those communities. So success for me was making sure people knew that YouTube cared about gaming, because the sentiment at the time was YouTube doesn't care about gaming. And I think we still have a long way to go. I think that's part of the nature of, there's so many opportunities for gaming creators to go in different platforms, that the expectations are always going to get higher and higher on the platforms. I love that. And so that continues to be like a driving mission statement for us, is making sure, people know that YouTube cares about gaming, and that we actually measure that and we move that forward. And you move that forward in a variety of ways, but that has been the day one focus, and that continues to be my focus today. And it informs what we do, how we do it, and why we do it.
Okay. And I mean, I jumped the gun on my next question there of what drives innovation. And I guess that passion that, people know you care, which it's very heartwarming. It's like a very sweet answer.
Yeah. And innovation's good. Like, I think, we struggle with this because you have to do, you have to parse the things out where it's like innovation, where you want to go do things very uniquely for your platform, is very important. But again, because there are a lot of competitors, there's a lot of optionalities for creators. So you have to allocate a certain amount of your time to truly saying, what products are you using on other platforms that you wish YouTube had, right? And I don't think that's innovation. Like when we go and we launch Clips, that's not really innovation, right? Because it's on Facebook, it's on Twitch. but it's a market expectation from creators and publishers. But then how you take that product and say, how do we innovate it on the YouTube way? Like that's where you can ingest the innovation side, where it's like, oh, well, we're a really big VOD platform. Like it can do much more than just be, you know, like a moment in live happened and you want to snip it, right? So that's a balancing act between the two, and it's really making sure that you're always allocating a portion of your time, energy, and enthusiasm to innovating, and a portion of it to servicing like the community's wish list, which is not always innovation.
With so many other viable platforms and those wish lists and expectations always rising, do you feel like that actually hinders innovation because there are so many expectations to hit and development cycles are a real thing you have to think about?
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah, I mean, maybe to a certain degree, but I still feel like where it's nice is that these, you know, creators, when they bubble up and you kind of take like the unanimous features that are being asked, no matter where you plug them, it can be innovative to that platform, even if it exists elsewhere. Like us doing stories or short form content or clips, like clearly those are options on other platforms. So like we're really towing a line of like, is that innovation? But when you bring them into YouTube, YouTube inherently is innovating by adding these things. So, you know, it's like yes and no. And that's why I think you have to be so conscious of how you balance it, because I think it actually can be detrimental, and you don't want to just do what others do. That's not inspiring work for anybody internally. And I don't think it's really inspiring for people that are using the platform or creating on it either.
We talked about how there was this revolutionary change for you. The last big changing point was capture cards back in 2010, 2011. When do you think the next wave of change is? Or do you think we're in it right now? Are we seeing a massive changing point now, or is it coming down the line?
Yeah, so a couple trends that I'm seeing right now that YouTube is really experiencing with change is mobile gaming has blown up. Some of the biggest games and some of the biggest esports events are now coming from mobile games. I think if I would have told you this in an interview 5 years ago, you'd be like, get off my show. You know, like that's never going to happen. And so that has happened, and we're seeing that growth continue. A lot of it is because YouTube is so global that we are beneficiaries of kind of regional trends. And you're seeing Southeast Asia and India and Latin America, who might not always have the same accessibility to consoles or PC, or just prefer mobile devices over these other options. And so that's a huge trend that I'm seeing happening that's really pushing the games industry forward. The next one that I'm keeping an eye on is, I think this line of blurring and playing, watching people play and people playing, is going to continue to blur. I think cloud gaming will be a part of that, but cloud gaming is going to be a 5 to 10 year thing. And I think of it as another way to play video games. I don't think it is as a way that's going to replace gaming. Like I'm always going to be a hardcore PC gamer. PC gaming is always going to be probably the best way for me to stay on the cutting edge of technology. But I do see cloud as another opportunity. And I think you're going to start to see like things between when you watch and play, like that be more of an interactive experience, because right now it's the chat or donations. That's how we interact with content. There's going to be a higher degree of interaction that's much more than just like a chat comment or, hey, you just subscribe to my channel, or hey, you just donated. So I'm looking for those lines to blur over the next 5 to 10 years as well. So those are two trends that I'm starting to see, you know, to grow. And that's what I have my eye on the most, on what we're seeing move the industry forward. And that's why when people ask me, they're like, hey, you know, you guys grew a lot in COVID. Do you think you're going to keep growing? Is this it? I think we have another huge leg up of growth that we're going to see in the games video industry overall.
Interesting. Okay. I like that, because we're seeing game developers start to think about streaming in the last 2 years. Games are being created with built-in live streaming integration and feedback from viewers. So mixing that together with cloud gaming, that's fascinating. Yes, I'll pay attention to it now too.
Yeah, I think it's long, right? It's going to take a while, you know, and I think cloud is so in its infancy and it's not where it needs to be yet. And it's a long-term thing. But I do think there's an opportunity. And I think it's good for live, because when you look at watch time behavior, you know, gaming VOD is so much more disproportionately consumed than live. It's like 80% of the way that we consume gaming video is actually on VOD content, not on live streaming. But if interactivity becomes a big thing, it lends itself better to live streaming, right? Inherently. And so I think you'll see live go through another big growth spurt of like people wanting to watch live streaming as well. And that will be a part of it.
Got it. Okay. Well, this has all been absolutely fascinating. And I think, for everybody watching along, this is a really, I personally, very valuable look into what's happening in the industry. Before we let you go, we're going to just do something a little fun, a little more nostalgic here. It's been a while since we've had any events. And I would love any scrap, any memory, any special moment of an event that has stayed with you and, lives rent free in your head that you used to survive our event drought at the moment.
No, I know this. And this answer will, I think, be forever the same. So it was MLG Anaheim National Championships 2009. It was the first time I ever got to commentate on main stage. So it was the Call of Duty 4 National Championship, and that's where I really made my my big break as an esports commentator. And so I was on cloud 9 in that moment, and that was like really that was it. So yeah, that was it.
All right. That's a good one. Which, funny enough, an MLG event is actually where I got my first big break back in 2014. Now that you mention it.
See, I love that. That's great. And look at it. Now you're crushing it for DreamHack. It all works out.
Oh gosh, it's funny. It's funny because the gaming world's huge, and then you realize it's not as big as you think it is. You roll those years back, and MLG, DreamHack, a few other names really do seem to pop up a lot.
Yep. Very fond memories there, and it's a small, for as big as the industry is, it's very small in a lot of ways too.
Yeah, which worked out great for this because Ryan was someone that I wanted to interview, and it turns out someone else at DreamHack worked with him in the past, knew him, and was like, "Here we go, let's set it up."
Love it, and I'm happy to come on. Yeah,
we really appreciate it. I think viewers really appreciate it. And, I'm sure, as Ryan is incredibly aware, for YouTube content, engagement is really wonderful. So if you want to comment on maybe the very first broadcast you ever remember watching, if you can go all the way back to Justin TV, Twitch, any of those things, we'd love to hear it because I'm actually really curious about it. Ryan, do you have any shout outs you want to do? You want to, push the Fwiz, as Jabali likes to call it?
No, I'm good. Yeah, my socials are Fwiz. I'm looking forward to people's answers in the comments. I'll come in and I'll reply to some people that drop their favorite broadcast they've ever seen. But thanks for having me on. Thanks to DreamHack. Good luck with everything. Stay in touch, and looking forward to talking to you again one day.
Yeah, thank you so much. And everyone, I hope you enjoyed the DreamHack download. We'll see you next time.